I wanted to talk about one of the things I think is probably the most frustrating thing about being what I would describe as a moderate. When you look at true neutral in a Dungeons and Dragons alignment map, what it really means is a passion for balance. And that means that, for example, a druid might be a true neutral, and that character would actively fight against what he perceives to be evil, but then he might switch sides and fight against the other side just because his goal is not for one side to win. His goal is for there to be balance between two opposing ideas. It's about saying, I want the predator to be there and I want the prey to be there, and I don't want one to stop being what it is. I don't want the prey to stop existing. I don't want the predator to stop existing, but I do want there to be harmony in the ecosystem so that they're able to exist together without driving each other into extinction. And that's how I see things like politics. I think, for example, Republicans and Democrats both need to exist. We want a moderate two-party system in a democratic republic. We don't want a country where there's only one side that has one complete dominance and stifles entirely all opposition. That's not healthy. So when I look at other people and I look in society, there's folks who I probably actually agree with quite a bit. I agree with the Republicans in many ways. I agree with the liberals in many ways. But where I don't agree with them is when they become activists, when they become extremists, and they start to have that attitude that there can be no difference. There can be no disagreement. You have to see things exactly the same way, and you have to join me in trying to drive the other side out of existence. You know, I think there's a lot of crazy activist liberals out there that are trying to take advantage of things like identity politics to create a narrative which divides people. And I also think that there's a lot of strange behaviors happening in the right-leaning circles too, where there's people who just view Trump like God or something. You know, it's this sort of a hero worship, cult of personality kind of a thing. I don't have any respect for that either. I don't respect people who are activists on the right or on the left. And as a result of this, what I find is I don't really have a place in society for the greater part, because most people wind up being very divided and defined by party lines in one way or the other. They might be radically Christian. They don't want to associate with people who aren't religious in the way that they are, or they are defined by being a left-leaning person or defined by being a right-leaning person. And there really isn't a lot of tolerance for saying, well, you know, I respect all of these ideas, but I'm not defined by any one of them. And I'm not going to tell you, for example, that just because I voted Republican in this election, I'm going to vote Republican in every election. No, I'm not going to tell you that, because I might vote Democratic next time. I might, if I choose to, right? That's my business. I can say what I want to do and then do that because I'm a free agent. But, you know, and that's something that's important when it comes to relationships a lot too, I think, because a lot of folks, they start to have this attitude that in a romantic relationship, you have to agree with your spouse or partner 100%. And if you don't, that's an act of betrayal. So you basically have to not only do all the things to keep your relationship healthy by doing what you're expected to do, you also have to basically give up your autonomy to have an opinion or to vote the way your conscience would dictate, etc., etc. In a lot of toxic relationships, that's kind of how it winds up being. It's that you don't have the right anymore to make any kind of decisions about what you believe. You don't have the right to think for yourself. You don't have a right to have an opinion that doesn't align with your partner or your friends, etc., etc. And people pretty much will just write you off. If you don't agree with them on everything, they will write you off. They'll try to find ways to casually take jabs and throw mud at you to kind of basically say, well, they're right and you're wrong. And they want to kind of, instead of trying to build up a friendship or build up a strong relationship, they want to undermine it. They want to say, well, you better agree with what I'm doing. And if you're not going to validate my position, then I don't really even want you in my life. And that's a very toxic attitude to have, but that's the attitude, unfortunately, that a lot of people have. So being a moderate is actually not going to mean that you're able to appeal to both sides of the aisle. It doesn't mean that you will have a level of acceptance among both sides. It just means that both sides will reject you. That's what it means. And so then you have to make a choice. Like, do you want to value the truth and be alone? Or do you want to pick a camp that you're going to root for, and then you won't have any agency, you won't have any autonomy, you won't have the ability to think for yourself or have an identity of your own, but you will have other people in your life. And I think that's been a struggle to me, because I've realized increasingly as time's gone on that the price I would have to pay to spend my life with other people is to align myself to what they believe, what they think, and then essentially relegate myself to be their property. And I really don't want to do that. So as a result, it becomes something I kind of dread to even associate with other people, because I know they're going to start doing some kind of virtue signaling, some kind of trying to prove that they're right and I'm wrong, some sort of trying to convince me to look at the world through their lens. And, when you're by yourself, you make your own choices, and no one's going to come and tell me I don't have a right to think what I think, or that I'm in some way threatening them because I have an opinion. I can just do it. No, I don't answer to anybody. And I think there's a few people who have a healthy attitude toward differences, toward being moderate, toward understanding that we want a diversity of opinion, a confluence of a lot of different extreme ideas that together in balance are beautiful, in harmony. But most people don't see it that way. Most people, they just pick a side, they pick the flag they want to wave, and then they get out there and they start being an activist to be a champion for whatever it is that they've picked as their chosen faction. And it's just like in a game where, people pick their side, and then once you've picked your faction, then everybody who's not your faction is the enemy in the PvP server. So what do? Well, I guess you just kind of learn to mind your own business, and you start to understand that most of the people you encounter in life are not going to be your friends. They're not going to be helping you along the way. They're going to be people who are probably driven by an agenda. And the reason for this is because most people are driven by instinct, and it's not normal to really be pragmatic about life, just like it is in the animal kingdom. Some animals are designed to be prey, some are designed to be hunters, and you can't go out there and find the lions and say, oh, well, let's convince the lions to be, to be docile. because that's just not really how it works. Like there might be a few cases where you could have a tame lion in captivity, but for the greater part, a lion is going to just be a lion. And so it is. People are going to be people. They're going to do what it is in their nature to do. And no amount of you trying to fix them or change them or think that you're going to rationalize with them will change that. So you just have to understand that there's a lot of people in the world, but very few of them are going to actually help you or be good companions in your journey through life. So maybe the lesson there is we have this tendency to have, I guess, a faith-driven approach to want to say, well, I'm going to like kind of wait for that, the one magic thing to fall into place. But really, I think in life, it's more like panning for gold in a stream or something. Like you're not out to go get that magic result the first time. Your goal is to just keep on exposing yourself to a lot of different content so that you can potentially find those rare drops, right? Like you just got to grind for a while so that you can find the good stuff. It's not about just hitting the slot machine at that exact moment and then hitting it big on the first go. It's about continuing to try over and over and over again and just kind of keep on filtering through people and throwing out the ones that are not going to be useful to you, and then keep looking for new ones that are. And I think that's kind of been hard for me because I've spent my whole life being, very much more focused on being faithful, focused on, looking for like the one soulmate, the one person that's going to be there that was, I was meant to be with, or, that kind of an attitude, right? I've always had this idea. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. It's about, picking that one good relationship right from the beginning, being very selective, and then having the reward of something that's going to be lasting. It's kind of like somebody said recently, measure 7 times, cut once. And I've always liked that sort of an attitude toward life. Don't be fickle. Don't be don't treat people like they are disposable. Don't treat people like they're not meant to be a permanent part of your life. Be very serious about your relationships with others. And I think there's nobility in that, but the reality is that's not going to produce the type of result that you may be looking for in life. In life, you're probably going to be much better off being open to a lot of different sort of relationships and people as they come, but also be very willing and open to close the door as soon as you realize that somebody is not going to be bearing good fruit in your life, because you do have to kind of sift through a lot of different relationships, a lot of different people to find a few good ones that are going to actually be, helping you to be a better person, helping you to have peace, to have joy in your life, versus, just being noise, which comes clattering in and then tries to manipulate you. So learning how to just, I guess, treat people a little bit more like they're disposable. I think that's a necessary evil in life, just because you can't fix people. You can't make people be different than what they are. So you just have to accept that that's a reality, and then be able to, not spend a lot of time casting your pearls before swine, if you will. And I think that's disappointing to a point, because you want to have this fairy tale happily ever after kind of an attitude toward life, where you believe that, everybody's going to be potentially, I guess, redeemable. Everyone's going to be able to be worked with. Everyone can listen to an appeal to reason, but that's not necessarily how it is. It's just sometimes doesn't work that way. So what do? You just have to understand, if you take the middle path, it's a lonely one. You know, like there is a scripture, it says straight and narrow is the way, but few there be that find it. And most people choose the broad path, and that's so true. Most people will choose the path where other people are going. Broad paths with a lot of people on them. And then there's that straight middle path, the middle way that's straight, that doesn't align with the right, it doesn't align with the left, it just goes right down the middle. And most people don't want that path. They don't want the truth. They want what sounds good to them. They don't want virtue. They want company. And ultimately they will sell out other people for their own benefit. So you have to be willing to take a path that's lonely sometimes. And that's just how life works. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think at the highest level, as much as we want to believe that we're superior in some ways, we are, for the greater part, probably advanced animals, in a sense. Like we're just we're creatures who have managed to become more in touch with our spirit, but we still have instincts as animals in a simple kind of a way. So it's not a surprise that most people live their life guided more by instinct than by reason. It's just kind of crazy to get your head wrapped around that, because it just feels like it's so ridiculous in a way to think, like, how do people be so successful in life? How do they have so much talent, so much potential? How can they do such great things and then at the same time be so completely ignorant, so deceived? And that's something that I think we have to understand and accept. Because you can look at people and say, well, this is a smart person, so they must be someone who I should allow myself to be guided by. I should look at them and say, well, you know, this person's doing it and they're a successful person, so they must be right. But the truth is, quite often they're not. They're not right. They're just deceived as anybody else. And maybe they're smart in some ways, but that doesn't mean they're smart in every way. So you got to be able to think for yourself. Don't be too inclined to follow other people. And don't be afraid to take a position which is unique and which is isolated, which is lonely. Because it's better to be lonely and free than it is to be in the company of manipulative people who are going to try to purchase your soul for their convenience. Take the middle path, even if it's a path that makes you sometimes be alone. Understand that there are always good people in the world. There's never a time when there's no one out there who could possibly, share your life with you. There's always opportunities to find new relationships which are not toxic, which are uplifting, which are fulfilling. It's just that's not most of them. So you kind of have to be willing to cycle through a lot of the ridiculous things so that you can get to the meat and potatoes of a few good things which are worth keeping. And then once you do find those things, you got to be faithful to them. Don't throw away good things because you're so determined to find something perfect. And if you do find something that's good, make sure that you are loyal and faithful, because the truth is, good relationships, whether it's good friends or a spouse or any of that, people who you can truly trust, who really want the best for you, that's rare, and it's something that should always be cherished if and when you do find it. And if you don't find it, then, I guess it's important to always remember there is something beautiful about the freedom that we have when we're alone, to have agency, to be able to think for ourselves, and to know that even if our life isn't perfect, it's truly our own. I was talking to my buddy about cryptocurrency, and I'm not a fan of cryptocurrency. That's just my opinion. I think it's there's a lot of different things you can say about it, but bottom line, even if there's value in it, I think there's too many people who are thinking to themselves, well, I'm going to invest in this particular something, and then I'm going to be able to get a free tropical island or a free sports car or something like that out of it. And that's just not a particularly based or wise sort of an attitude to have. The belief that you're going to get something for nothing, that you're going to get a whole bunch of free money in exchange for hitting a button on your cell phone to invest some small amount of money into the right thing. It's just, the bottom line is, if you act like life's a casino, well, eventually somebody's going to be left holding the bag. And I just don't really I don't really buy into it. I think it's something where people see what they want to see because it's a message that really resonates with a lot of people. I mean, who doesn't like the idea of putting a little bit of money into something and then getting wildly rich as a result? Everyone likes that. But in the end, truth is really what matters. And anyway, I was talking to my friend about this the other day, and I told him, I said, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is you should invest in what you feel is right for you. And if you feel that cryptocurrency is the right thing for you to put your money into, then go for it. But I'm not going to do it because I don't believe in it. And I could be wrong. That's fair. But the real reward here is that if I invest in something just because my buddies are investing in it and because it's popular on social media to say that's what you should be doing, then if it goes south, I'm going to kick myself and I'm going to be unhappy because I'm going to know I didn't make that choice myself. I just followed other people who are making that choice. That's why it's so important to think for yourself, do your own analysis, and figure out what you believe is right. And then do that. And then you're going to have to be accountable for the consequences of your choice. And it's just that simple. You might reap good benefits, or you might be humbled and you have to acknowledge that you made a mistake. But either way, whether it goes up or down, the nice thing is knowing that you've made a choice for yourself, by yourself, based on what you truly believed was true. And if you did that, then you're going to be in a better place spiritually, really, than if you're just following the crowd. And I can't tell anyone else, like, here's the correct thing, what you ought to be doing. I can't tell you that because it's totally possible that I might be wrong. I might think that I know the truth, and I might be wrong, just like you might be. But that's why we have to be accountable to make our own decisions, and we have to be able to respect other people who make decisions that are different than our own, and we have to be supportive of that. And we need to surround ourselves with other people who also will say, I support the decisions that you're making, and that doesn't mean I'm going to make the same decision myself. We're just going to be independent in terms of agency and supportive of each other with a level of humility to acknowledge that neither of us are necessarily entirely right all the time, but we don't have to be, because we're accountable to ourselves to make choices based on our own best judgment, not somebody else's. And that's true in investment. It's true in what makes a relationship healthy. We need to be able to have differences and even have quite dramatic opposing opinions, and also understand that we want those opinions. I don't want a world where everyone agrees with me. I don't want a world where everyone votes the same way as I do, or sees life through the same lens as I do. And that's hard for people to understand, that we can say, well, here's my position on this, but then I also think that other people should have a different position on the same thing, because we don't want an echo chamber where only one idea prevails. Most people, they just don't get it. It bothers them to say that, because in order to say that, you kind of have to acknowledge a pragmatic liberalism there. It's kind of like if you go into a Masonic lodge, the fraternity is open to all religions. And so if you go in there, you'll see on the altar in the middle of the room, you've got a Bible there. You've probably got a Quran there. You might have a Book of Mormon. I don't know, just like whatever religious books pertain to the members who attend, you'll have them there. And it's symbolic of the fact that the members are required to pledge their loyalty to a higher power, but they're not required to have the same religion. And so it's a universalist kind of a principle, which is quite ecumenical. But ironically, despite the fact that it's a fraternity that's open to all religions, you can't really have religious extremists there, because if somebody's absolutely dogmatic about believing that anyone who disagrees with their religion is a person they don't want to have communion with, well, then they're not going to be a member of that club, right? Because they're going to be too offended by the idea of sharing the space with somebody who's different than they are. And so that's a great example, though, of acknowledging differences and saying, we definitely are going to make a point to say we have differences. We're going to make a point to acknowledge those differences. But we're also going to make a point to agree that those things don't need to be something which divides us. That's a very rare opinion to find amongst people. If you can find that kind of pragmatic liberalism, I think it's something that's very special, because it's rare to have people want to share the table with other people who don't see things the same way as they do. In any case, cheers to pragmatic liberalism and the middle way, to always celebrate differences, and even if they seem like they don't come across as very compatible, to be willing to celebrate them anyway, even if that means you have to take a path which is largely solitary. Not being a person who hates other people is probably the exception to the rule. Even though we like to say that we're enlightened people, that's just the truth of the matter. So, wherever you find yourself, good luck on your adventure. Till next time. Thanks for watching.